Is Jesus Gutierrez, work in the financial aid office. So I'll be presenting about financial aid today. I ask that you hold off your questions until the very end of the presentation, as we'll have 10 minutes or so for me to answer all your questions. And so, yeah, let's get started. So here are the topics I'll be covering today. Cost of attending college, how to apply for financial aid, types of financial aid available at DVC, financial aid tips, and finally the Q&A session. So how much does it cost to attend college? Here we have a graph showing the cost of attendance for the 2021 academic year. On the left-hand side, we have community college, which is DVC, the cost of attendance there, and all the way to the right, a private institution, which I use St. Mary's as an example. And in between we have CSUs and UCs. So you can see the differences in costs and the cost of attendance for college this upcoming academic year. So it's a very big discrepancy when it comes to public schools and private schools. And it's also important to note that these amounts are before financial aid. So no financial aid is taken into account with these figures. And so the cost of attendance it's not the bill that you may get from the college. It's just an estimated amount that it will cost you as in the student to go to college every single year. Again, not the bill you'll get. And then here's the example of DVC, so the Contra Costa Community College District. Every single district or college has to publish a cost of attendance budget every single year. So for CD, we have living at home with parents or living off campus. And so the reason why it's estimated is because every single family's financial situation is different. For example, transportation may be different for one family versus another. As same thing with food and housing, but the only thing that is stable in this chart is the fees, and the fees for DVC is the tuition. So this is what a full-time student would pay in tuition. So 12 units would be $12.88 for the academic year. So that's fall and spring, and all these figures are including the whole academic year. So something to keep note of, especially when your student does transfer out, especially when it comes to housing, because it gives you a good idea, especially of how much you'll pay, especially if they're going out of state or to a different part of the state. So yes, and how to apply for financial aid. Most students will fill out what's called the FAFSA, which is an acronym for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. To access the application, you go to FAFSA.gov. It's not .com or .net. This is the landing page. So it says FAFSA at the very top, and also this is the landing page. So it's pretty prominent as to whether or not you're at the right place or not. And so what will you need to fill out the FAFSA? You'll need your social security number if you're a U.S. citizen, your alien registration number if you're not a U.S. citizen, as well as federal income tax, W-2s, or other records of money earned from 2 years prior. And I'll explain that a bit later on, as well as bank statements, records of investment, records of untaxed income if applicable, and finally your FSA ID to log in and sign electronically. So the parent and student will need an FSA ID. Basically, it's a username and password that the FAFSA uses to recognize a person, to make sure that that person is indeed that person. So you will need to create one. Signing it electronically is the fastest way for the application to be completed. And so undocumented students can also receive financial aid, but they will just receive it from the state of California, not the federal government. And so those students will fill out the California DREAM Act application instead of the FAFSA. This is the landing page for the California DREAM Act. And to apply, you go to dream.csac.ca.gov. You can also just Google DREAM Act application California. And so then who should fill out the DREAM Act? Undocumented students who meet the following requirements. If they have attended a California high school for at least 3 years, or if they graduated from a California high school early but have at least 3 years of credit, and graduate or will graduate from a California high school or its equivalent like a GED. And now with the new State Bill 68, a new pool of students are now eligible to apply for financial aid. So if they have 3 full-time years of attendance or attainment of equivalent credits at a California high school, adult school, community college, or a combination of above, they will also be eligible to fill out the California DREAM Act application. Also, DACA recipients should fill out the California DREAM Act application and not the FAFSA, even though they may have a social security number or a temporary work permit. And so the difference between the FAFSA and the DREAM Act, again, it's just that DREAM Act students do not have access to the federal financial aid. So there's limited strictly to California state aid, but luckily for Dreamer students, California is the state that gives out the most state aid. So they're still supported, but hopefully in the future that will change. And so when to apply. So this upcoming academic year, which is starting on Monday, so fall 2020, spring 2021, and summer 2021, that application opened up actually October 1st of 2019, and it doesn't close until June 30th of 2021. The priority deadline for state aid, which was March 2nd, so almost 6 months ago. And to fill out the application, you will need 2018 tax information or income information. The reason being is because the application opened up on October 1st of 2019. And so then no one had their taxes done for 2019, obviously, when October 1st rolled around. So 2018 income information is needed. Now for next year, so 2021-22 academic year, that application is going to open up October 1st of this year. So that's a little over a month now. And then that will close June 30th of 2022. And the priority deadline for that application will be March 2nd, 2021 for state aid. So by missing that March 2nd deadline every single year, you're missing out on potentially thousands of dollars. So it's very, very important that you treat March 2nd more or less as your deadline for financial aid. That's what I did when I was in college, and I never missed a deadline, and I always got my state aid because of that. And so then for the 21-22 application, you will need 2019 income information to complete that. And so the types of financial aid available at DVC, fairly standard at as most colleges. So we have grants, work study loans, and scholarships. So grants is money that doesn't need to be repaid ever. The only time it ever is repaid is if a student drops out in the middle of the semester, for example. So I included the 3 most common grants that students get while at DVC. There's a Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, and the maximum for this year is $6,345, and that's prorated based off the information provided on the FAFSA, as well as the enrollment status. So how many units a student is enrolled in. There's also the Cal Grant, which is a state grant, and that requires GPA verification, and also the student must meet the March 2nd deadline. So again, by submitting an application past March 2nd, so for example, March 3rd, you're already out of contention for the Cal Grant. There's also the Promise Grant, which is at community colleges only, and that waives tuition fees. So that means free tuition. Now there's also the option to do work study on campus. Basically, it's a job at an office that a student may have. For example, they can work in the financial aid office. They can also work in the library or whatever they choose to work. And basically, they're paid as an hourly worker, but it's actually they're getting paid out of financial aid. So it doesn't hurt them in a few years when they apply for financial aid if they put down that they did work study, because essentially it zeroes out if they made $1,000 from work study and $1,000 income, that zeroes out. So it doesn't hurt the student at all to be a work study student. There's also loans, which obviously are borrowed funds that are paid back with interest. So hopefully most students don't need to take out loans while at DVC, but because life happens, it is an option for students. And there's also scholarships available at DVC, and I will go over that a bit later in the presentation. Now, there is this new program called First Time Full-Time Free Tuition. Basically, it's free tuition for first-time students. So to be eligible for this program, you have to be a first-time college student, enroll in a minimum of 12 units for the fall term. So that's 12 units is the minimum for full-time. You also complete a quick FT3 pledge, complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. The student must be a California resident or otherwise exempt from paying non-resident fees. For example, being an AB 540 student. And then if you complete a minimum of 12 units for the semester with at least a GPA of 2.0 or higher, you will receive a refund of your enrollment fees. So the program actually now covers the first 2 years of enrollment. When we first rolled this program out, it was only the first year, but now it's 2 years. So hopefully the first 2 years that your student is here, they will get free tuition either through the FG3 program or through the California Promise Grant. Now for scholarships, there are about 75 DVC scholarships and 150 opportunities for 150 opportunities. So that means that it averages about 2 students per scholarship. Everyone can apply. The amounts range from $500 to $5,000. Students just have to do a single online application at our scholarship website, and they log in with their Insight portal, username and password, and they fill out the information. They don't need to do multiple different applications. It's just one. And the applications open up every year in late October, and they close around mid-February. So they're not open just yet. If come as scholarship season, you can come to the financial aid office or also the scholarship office to ask any scholarship questions. And there's also external scholarships. We have some external scholarships available to be seen again on our scholarship website, but they have their own unique criteria, requirements, and deadlines. So the student must apply for each scholarship separately. It's not like the DVC scholarship where it's just one application. And so then with very few exceptions, the student must submit the application materials directly to the organization that they're applying, that the scholarship is for. And there are also scholarship resources available for foster youth and undocumented students. And there is also another student services department at DVC is the EOPS office, so Extended Opportunity Programs and Services. EOPS is a comprehensive retention and support program designed to promote the academic success of low-income and educationally disadvantaged students. So some of the services that they provide include counseling, study grants, and book vouchers, tutoring, priority registration, new student orientation, as well as transfer assistance. So for more information, you can head over to the EOPS website, as well as learning about the criteria to be a part of the EOPS program, as well as their application process. And so after you apply, the student should be checking their financial aid checklist on their Insight. We also send out emails to the students' Insight about the status of their financial aid, letting them know like, hey, your financial aid is available to be seen on your Insight. And also, if we ever need anything else, we only email students to their DVC Insight email. So they should get in the habit of start checking that regularly. And so if they're eligible, they also get to select how they want to receive their financial aid funds, because some funds do go directly to students, and the student must have a financial aid eligible major declared. And if you don't know whether or not the major is eligible on Insight, there's a filter to know to see which majors are financial aid eligible. And so there's a thing called satisfactory academic progress. Basically, it's a federal regulation that every single college has to follow. In order to maintain eligibility for financial aid, a student must complete at least 67% or more of all their units attempted, as well as earn a minimum overall GPA of a 2.0 and to not exceed 150% of their declared majors required units. And that's called maximum time frame. So the maximum time frame won't come into play unless they have taken lots of units throughout multiple semesters. And so an example of not meeting a SAP is going to back-to-back semesters of a GPA below 2.0 and or a pace below 67%. And if they do that, they will be placed on suspension. But there is an appeal process that a student will go through, but it's easier for a student to just meet these requirements so they don't ever have to have their financial aid held up because of this process. And if you need any additional help, there's some videos available on demand 24/7 that cover multiple financial aid topics, as well as step-by-step tutorials, including applying for the FAFSA, the types of financial aid, applying for student loans, so on and so forth. The content is also available in Spanish and I believe in Chinese as well. And so then if you just head over to dvc.financialaidtv.com, you'll be able to be able to access that resource. And so for financial aid tips, everyone should apply. Don't assume that you don't qualify. There seems to be this stigma of financial aid that only low-income students and families qualify, but that's not the case. Lots and lots of families do qualify, but they may not know, and then doesn't hurt to apply. And so the application is also free. You literally have nothing to lose. You just put in your information, you may get thousands of dollars. And so then the FAFSA is also made a lot easier with the IRS data retrieval tool. So basically your taxes get pulled from the IRS database. And so you don't need to figure out what numbers you need to put in if you use the IRS data retrieval tool. The average time also to complete the FAFSA is about 30 minutes, but I've seen students complete it in as little as 5 to 10 minutes. So 30 minutes to potentially get thousands of dollars, I think that's a great return. Not a return that you see everywhere. So I think you have nothing to lose, and it's worth a shot taking 30 minutes out of your day to submit your financial aid application. And so the parents will have to provide income information for the FAFSA and DREAM Act application. Regardless of how much support is provided by the parents, a student is still considered dependent for financial aid purposes unless they're at least 24 years old, married, have kids, enrolled in a master's or doctorate program, a veteran, or an orphan, legal guardianship, emancipated minor, foster, or homeless youth. So even if you don't provide any financial support to your child or to your student, they will still need to get your information unless they meet one of these criteria below. And so to get the best financial aid award package possible, you want to submit your FAFSA or your DREAM Act by March 2nd, and also have your GPA verification form submitted to the State Aid Commission. And then that way you'll find out what the best financial aid award package you'll get for the following year. So for example, for 21-22, if you missed the March 2nd deadline, make sure to meet that March 2nd deadline for the following academic year. So then now I'll look over the chat, answer any questions people may have. Make sure to keep it general. I can't answer any personal questions for obvious reasons. There's a lot of people here. And then here is our contact information. If you wish to contact us for the office, our phone number is on the bottom, as well as our email. And I'll start answering a few questions. So Tom asked, how do I sign up to speak to a financial aid person? Again, you would just contact us. We can only answer general questions to parents. So if you want to ask very specific questions, make sure the student is on the phone. So Penny asked that her son filled out the FAFSA last year as a senior, and she wants to find out how he'll find out if he will receive any aid. He will want to check his Insight portal. If nothing is on there, then he will have to contact us, and we'll have to maybe troubleshoot a few things to find out why we haven't received his application. So the FT3, I'm assuming someone asked, where do they get the FT3 paper? I'm assuming they're talking about the pledge. You would just Google DVC FT3, or just be on the DVC website and just on the search bar at the top, type in FT3, and they'll send you a link to the FT3 pledge portion. Here's a good question from Jennifer. For the FT3 program, can a portion of the 12 units be from BYU Online? No, the units have to be at DVC, LMC, or CCC. So within our district, so the 3 schools. So if they're taking classes at another community college or at any college in America, we will not count those units. And then Miriam asks another good question. Are there income requirements for FT3 program? There is no income requirement. So even if you make $1 million, your student can still get free tuition. And Victor asks, is it too late to file for financial aid for 2020, 2021? No, it's not too late. We accept applications throughout the year. So there's no particular deadline except for the June 30th, 2021 deadline, which is the absolute last day for financial aid, for you to submit a financial aid application. And then someone asked, when will we get a bill for our students' first semester? I believe that is through the Insight portal. There's a payment tile on there, and that's where the student can check how much is owed to the school. And then they also asked, we signed up for the FG3 program and it indicates we will be refunded. Does that mean we pay the bill when it arrives and then need to go through a refund process for each semester? So you can pay for the bill up front and then get refunded through the payment method. So if you pay via credit card, you would get a credit to that card. If you pay cash, for example, you get a check in the mail. IT also set up something in the system where FT3 students, they can still register for a subsequent semester, even by having a outstanding bill. But I have seen a few hiccups with that. So if your family does have the means to pay for the tuition, I recommend doing that and then getting refunded once the student does meet the academic requirements as well as the other requirements. Tracy asks, when will we be notified about our financial aid? Ours has been sitting in review for several months. So Tracy, I recommend that your student contact us, preferably over the phone. Our email's kind of backed up right now. So over the phone is probably the fastest way to get an answer from us at this point. So if a FAFSA is denied, is student still eligible for FT3? And that was asked by Leo. The FAFSA would have to be completed. The only reason a FAFSA would be denied is if the student didn't provide information that is needed. So for example, not signing the application, not providing parent information. So they would still need to provide that information in order to find out if they're eligible for FT3. So by not completing the financial aid application completely, they won't be eligible for FT3 until it is completed. So Shauna asks, is FT3 for those who wouldn't normally qualify for the Pell or Promise Grant? My son receives a Promise Grant instead, although he was approved for FT3. Shauna, that is correct. FT3 kind of is for students that wouldn't qualify for the Promise Grant. They get put in the FT3 bucket. So your son will get his tuition covered through the Promise Grant, and other students that didn't qualify for the Promise Grant will get covered by FT3. Denise asked, is it too late to apply for the FT3 program for fall 2020? It's still not too late. I believe the pledge closes sometime around October or November. So still have a few months, but obviously the sooner the better. And then Kristen asked, we apply for financial aid this year. Will the login to apply in October be the same? Yes, so your login will stay the same unless you change it, obviously. So it's always beneficial to write down that login information or have it handy somewhere. Greg asks, when will the tuition be reimbursed if you qualify for the FT3 program? It will be reimbursed after the semester ends. So we have to wait for professors to submit their grades into the system and for us to run the report. So after the fall semester, for example, it would be early January when the reimbursements would go out. And then Mary Rose asks, for the FT3 program, we just apply once, right? What do we have to do? We have to apply yearly for FAFSA, correct? Yes, so the FT3 program, you just do once. If you meet the requirements, you'll roll over automatically to the next semester, so on and so forth for the first 4 semesters. And then, yes, you have to submit your FAFSA or your DREAM Act every single year. It's not a one-time thing. So Maria asked, when does the GPA verification need to be completed? That also needs to be completed around the March 2nd deadline. Admissions and Records does send out GPA verification, so it's important to follow up with them to make sure that the GPA verification is sent out to the State Aid Commission. And then Kenneth asked, does the pledge need to be signed each year or just once for both years? So it's only done once, so it should only be done for fall 2020, for example. And then if your student does meet the requirements, he or she will be rolled over semester after semester. And then Clarice asked, if I have taken a summer class this year, will I still qualify for the FT3 program? The FT3 program only covers fall and spring semesters. So no summer classes are covered with the FT3 program. I believe that is all the questions so far that we have.